Does your church publish its sermon videos on YouTube? If you do, you're like a lot of churches. There's nothing wrong with using YouTube as a free hosted archive for your church's recordings, but YouTube is the second most visited website in the world, and there's a lot more that can be done on this platform. And what we're beginning to see are churches using a very intelligent technique on YouTube to drive more views, more subscribers, and most importantly, more next steps. And the best part, you don't even need to create new content from scratch to do this. I'm gonna show you how it's done right now with real examples. Let's dive in. Okay, let's start with what we know about high-performing YouTube videos. The team at Backlinko analyzed 1.3 million YouTube videos to better understand how the algorithm and search functions worked on the platform, and here's a bit of what they discovered. The average length of a first-page YouTube video is 14 minutes, 50 seconds. Now, there are two things that come to mind for me when I see that. First, one thing we do know about the YouTube algorithm is that overall watch time matters. Like virtually every social platform, YouTube wants to keep you on its site for as long as possible. Why? Well, because their primary revenue stream is ads. And the more time that you spend on YouTube, the more ads you'll see. Pretty straightforward. And when you compare YouTube to other social apps, they seem to be doing a better job at keeping us on their platform. Consider that users spend almost 24 hours each month on the YouTube mobile app. Second on that list is Facebook at 20 hours. Instagram, it's all the way down at 11. Bottom line, it's in YouTube's best interest to keep you on their platform. And so they are incentivized to index longer videos in search preferentially compared to shorter videos. However, there can be diminishing returns there because while overall watch time is a key part of the YouTube algorithm, average percentage viewed also gets tracked. And that measures your video's ability to hold attention. And when YouTube sees your videos can do that, they're going to reward it with higher search and recommendation rankings. And by the way, both average watch time and average percentage viewed are metrics available to you. You can see this for yourself on your own channel in YouTube Studio. So these aren't secret data points. You can see how you're doing. To that end, let's look at a couple of real examples of how this can play out from my own channel. First, in the last 90 days, the overall average watch time per video on my channel is 4 minutes and 3 seconds. Okay, so that's the average. Now let's look at one of the more popular videos on my channel in the last couple of years. The video's total length is around 8 minutes. Average percentage viewed is 42%, meaning the average view duration is just 3 minutes and 26 seconds, so lower than my average of around 4 minutes. Here's another popular video. This video's total length, 20 minutes. Average percentage viewed is just 33%, right? So, okay, lower than that last example, but, and here's what's most important, because this video is more than twice as long as the previous, despite that lower percentage viewed, the average view duration on this video is 6 minutes and 44 seconds compared to 3 minutes and 26 seconds on the other one, so almost double the average view time. And so this brings us back to that Backlinko data point. The average length of a first page YouTube video, it's 14 minutes, 50 seconds. That seems to be the sweet spot for maximizing view duration without completely sacrificing view percentage. So think of those two examples I shared with you. Yes, my 20-minute video had a drop in percentage viewed from 42% to 33%, but because of that video's duration, the overall watch time doubled, and that is a trade-off well worth making. However, you can push this too far, and this brings me to the average sermon video. Your sermon video length as is probably not optimal for search and recommendation. There's a reason the average length of a video on YouTube's first page of search is about 15 minutes and not 40 minutes, and that reason is diminishing returns on average view duration relative to average view percentage. Said simply, yes, a 40-minute sermon video might garner a better average view duration than a 15-minute video, but generally, the average view percentage will drop off so much on that 40-minute video that it will wipe out, perhaps even detract from the positive watch time signal. So a lot of data. What I'm trying to demonstrate to you is that the length of your sermon video as is likely not optimal for YouTube search and discovery. And look, your church may not have the resources to create dedicated videos for YouTube, but YouTube can be more than just an archive. It can be a discovery path for people hearing the good news. That can in turn translate to more next steps being taken in and through your church. So let's now take a look at a church that's already doing this. And speaking of what's optimal for search and discovery, make sure you hit the like button on this video. It helps me a lot. So this is a sermon taught by Stephen Furtick, uploaded to YouTube. It's 1 hour and 17 minutes long. The sermon is called Finish with Favor. This is the full recording of the message, hosted on YouTube for archive purposes. Now, Elevation and Furtick, they have great name recognition in the church space, highly visible, highly affluent, and there are plenty of strategies or ministry rhythms that I would not recommend the average church lift from a church of this size that is this influential. But the fact that Elevation is using this technique that I'm about to show you really does speak volumes to me because they don't need to. Okay? They're going to get a ton of traction on their extremely long sermon videos that are not optimized for YouTube perhaps because their audience is so engaged and so big. And yet despite that, they're still following this formula. And so in this case, if it's good enough for them, I'd say it's good enough for all of us. And one more caveat. Please do not let your personal views or opinions on Elevation or Furtick turn you off of this technique. You would not avoid the color orange at your church just because Elevation has it as their main brand color. Same principle applies here. So we've already looked at the full sermon video. Finish with Favor, almost 90 minutes long. Here's the second video that I want to show you. It's titled Stop Focusing on Negative Emotions. It is 18 minutes long. And where did this video come from? It is a targeted excerpt from that full Finish with Favor video, just with a new title. And in the precise video duration range that you and I now know is perfectly suited for high rankings. This video, it even links to the full sermon right in the description. Now, let's look at the views on each video. The full message has just under 1 million views. The shorter excerpt has about 1.25 million, so a 25% boost in overall views on the shorter video. And while we can't see behind the scenes into the precise analytics that YouTube has for these videos, or even what Elevation has themselves, I would guess that these videos are reaching different audiences. I would guess that the full-length sermon is reaching more of the returning audience for Elevation, the folks that are showing up every week, while the shorter excerpt is more the discovery path for newer audiences. I'll also note that the full sermon is posted on the Elevation YouTube channel, while the shorter version is on the Stephen Furtick channel. That's not going to be applicable to the average church, but the reason why I think this overall approach to YouTube is ideal for most churches is because it shores up a weakness that most churches face on YouTube. Yes, they're using it as an archive, which is cool, but they don't have a realistic path to discovery and reaching new audiences. Most churches also don't have the time, team, or creative energy to create videos specifically for YouTube from scratch. But what if I told you you could shore up that weakness I just mentioned without creating any new content? That's what this strategy does. 2 tips to making it work. First, extract a section from your message that is around 15 minutes long. We've talked about that a ton. The second thing you'll need to do is give it a hook. Because listen, Finish with Favor is a fine sermon series title. We love the alliteration, don't we? But for the average person outside the church, that video is not relevant to them. It doesn't mean anything. However, the title, Stop Focusing on Negative Emotions, that is universally accessible. That is a good hook. And in my most recent video, we talked about hooks and how to use them for repurposing sermon videos on TikTok and Reels. And so much of that video is relevant to this technique as well. So make sure to watch that one if you haven't already. It's linked in the description and on the video itself. But the key principle here is identifying parts of your sermon that are universally relevant to as many people as possible, where faith and culture intersect. Finish with Favor may be relevant to the Christian faith, but it is not accessible to the average person not affiliated with the church. Stop Focusing on Negative Emotions, however, is. Same wisdom source from Scripture, but now meeting the average person where they're at. That's how you reach new audiences. The final note I want to tackle in this video is the pushback that I can already hear from folks saying, well, how does this actually help my church? Even if I was able to do this, and one of my shorter videos was indexed in search and it got a ton of views, then what? And when I hear something like that, it tells me that your church probably doesn't have a strategy for digital. Because yes, if ultimate fulfillment of mission at your church is measured by higher in-person attendance numbers, this probably isn't for you. I would, however, point you to my video and article called The New Rules for Church Growth, because if in-person attendance is the ultimate way you measure and quantify if your church is healthy and growing, that is a vulnerability that must be addressed. As I lay it out in that video, I'd recommend you swap out attendance for a more holistic and helpful metric. We call it next steps. And that metric, it applies to both digital and in person. And attendance can absolutely be a part of that framework. It just can't be the only thing. And it can't be the main thing. And once that's done, you can more accurately measure how a strategy like this is working to contribute to your church's mission. I even give you a free downloadable spreadsheet in that video, so make sure to check it out. Subscribe to this channel as well if you haven't already, and connect with me personally on Instagram and TikTok at Brady Shearer. If you've got questions, I do a weekly podcast and answer those questions on the show, The Pro Church Tools Show with Brady Shearer. You can find that. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And thanks as always for your time, attention, and trust. We'll talk soon.